Welcome.
Welcome to EnvironMental Podcast.
I'm Courtney.
I'm Ob.
Yeah.
This is our podcast where we talk about and investigate things around sustainability. And every month we choose a topic and then we dive really deep into it and offer solutions for consumers and for brands. And this month we're talking about packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And this week in particular, we're talking about a book that we read or listened to on Audible.
Yes. And yeah, we've always done these book reviews, but since we've made some changes to our podcast in general with EnvironMental, we're making the book focused on the different aspect of sustainability that we're looking into. So this month we read The Future of Packaging by Tom Zaki. Tom Zaki is the CEO of TerraCycle.
Dope,
Um,
dope company.
just overall, yeah, TerraCycle is a leader in the recycling industry.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I feel like they're like our hope for the the future.
Yeah.
Um, TerraCycle
Really.
is huge. They partner with some of the biggest corporations in the world to
Mm-hmm.
help offer more sustainable solutions. And we just before recording this learned about a really dope program that they recently launched. So
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
whoa.
Yo, whoa. Um, Before we jump into talking about the future of packaging, I want to say that if you like these and you want like notifications for when our podcasts post because you want to follow along with an entire topic or just learn about different aspects of environmental sustainability and other aspects of sustainability, you should subscribe to, especially if you're watching on YouTube. That's really, really helpful. And we can, see and make more podcasts like this. This is awesome.
Yeah, we definitely want to put stuff out there that you guys enjoy. So yeah, leave us feedback, comments, subscribe, like the video. That it's all really helpful. We definitely put a lot of emphasis into kind of doing a lot of research and trying to put together some really interesting information for consumers and for brand owners. And we hope that
Yeah.
it's resonating with you. So let us
Yeah.
know. Let us know. Yeah. Um, right on. So yes, okay. This book was so I guess before. So last month we dove into just recycling in general, and we sort of learned more about
The
that
business.
process. Yeah, the industry, the limitations, more about their strengths, and that information kind of like I think coming into this month with that background was super helpful because
Yeah.
these two conversations about recycling in general and then about packaging and packaging waste are like thoroughly tied. They
Yeah.
cannot be untied. So that was helpful background information. So
Yeah.
if you are interested in learning about packaging waste, packaging solutions, um,
Mhm.
check out our podcast with Marissa Segundo, where she talks about the recycling industry. We interview her about her experience in the industry. I think it would be a really helpful kind of resource. And then also our the following podcast, which I think is episode 8, is where we give like actual brand solutions
Yeah.
for you. So that one's really useful kind of background information as well, if this is something that you are trying to incorporate into your brand.
Yeah. I think that's a really good call out because I think I would have had a difficult time understanding all of these issues and a lot of the terminology used in this book if we hadn't started with recycling.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of lingo. I mean,
So much lingo, lots of
and
jargon.
yeah, and I think understanding the intricacies of the challenges in the recycling industry in general
Yeah.
make it easier for you to come up with uh, better solutions, because that's what we're working within. We're working within the frame of the recycling industries that we have. um, so
Right. And I think like just starting with this book, it would have been easy to fall prey to something that we talked about a few weeks ago, where it's like being frustrated and being like talking shit about the recycling industry because they're just not there yet.
mhm.
But the reality is that's a massive infrastructure that takes millions, if not billions of dollars to make changes to. And it doesn't get the funding or the attention that it really needs. And I think starting there and saying, okay, what's available? What are the issues that are being worked on in this industry right now was a really good way to start with. Having that on our mind was a good way to start with like okay, what's the issue with packaging?
Mhm.
So that was helpful for me to not be like, well, fuck the recycling industry, like I think it was easier to say like, how can we help that industry to meet the standards that we actually really need?
Yeah, right. I mean, we're as a consumer or as a brand owner, no matter who you are, as just an individual, you are interacting with the recycling industry, and knowledge of what they can and can't accept is really sort of like a base level of like
Yeah.
um of knowledge that you should work to attain. um
It seems like that seems like a difficult thing. I know for me, it kind of feels like it, but it really takes like 10 minutes to know what you can recycle at from your house or in your
mhm.
space. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
feels like a big challenge, but it only takes like me put aside a half an hour to like do that research and you will feel a billion times better.
We'll actually put aside an hour and go listen to our podcast.
Yo.
No, yeah, there are definitely there are solutions out there, but I think that I want to say that like something I learned from this book was that it's great when brands try to make an innovative solution for their packaging to try to be more sustainable. That's great. Like that's a phenomenal effort. But
Right.
sometimes that can actually be moving too fast and the recycling industry isn't there yet.
Right.
So I think that
Such a
is
good, yeah.
where that's where frustration is really, like on that side, like because you're like, well, why isn't this perfectly recyclable or something, like
Right.
they worked so hard to try to make this completely compostable. um
Right.
but if the systems aren't there yet in order to collect and properly like sort that out, and if there isn't an end market where they can actually sell that recyclable material, it's not a solution, it's actually just
More of a
part of the
problem.
problem.
Yeah. It like creates more of a problem. So actually what would be better than developing a whole new type of packaging is to work with your local MRFs or a company like TerraCycle to learn what can be done, what steps you can take, and maybe try to figure out like new innovations or like putting time and attention and energy into creating innovation so that you can create a packaging that is more sustainable in the long run.
Right. And I think that this book did a really good job of really focusing on like how to make things circular,
Yeah.
which will continue to hear that, and that will be probably a common theme amongst many of these episodes of environmental because
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 that's the overall goal, right? Is like a sustainability is circular. It has to
Right.
be.
It has to be. The earth is a closed loop system.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, it has to be circular. It
I'm sorry, it was just really cute.
is.
It's a closed loop system.
Bro, it's not going anywhere except here, and we got to deal with it.
Right.
So,
Right. That was just awesome. You're right. You're right.
well, I mean, it's interesting to have, like, that was one of the last things in sort of the last chapters was like, keep in mind that like there is no gone away, like this, the earth is a closed loop system, and we have to think about our own production and consumption in that same way. End of story. Like,
Right.
we have
There's
to.
no right.
Yeah. So that was I think just a kind of a nice way to like tie it all up, you know.
I
But
think
yeah.
something I learned that I didn't necessarily learn it, but something that like opened my eyes, just like a statement with this, and is that 99% of the stuff that we get or buy or whatever, like consume, is waste within a year. And an extreme amount of what we purchase is packaging, just packaging. And it's like, I'm thinking about, well, right now I'm thinking about tea bags actually, because right before this I made tea.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you buy a tea bag, a box of tea bags, you have a box, and then you have paper inside it, and then inside that you have a little bag that has a tag on it that is also, all of that is packaging for like leaves, tea leaves. And like that's so much volume.
Yeah.
And you think, and when you start to like extrapolate that out and think about how much of your shit is or like I opened some Christmas gifts this year. My parents sent me a package from the States in November, and it just got to us in January. And so much of it is just packaging.
Right.
And like that, no matter what you choose in terms of like your I wouldn't say ingredients, but like what your packaging is made out of, like it still poses a problem. It's still bulk there. So actually cutting down on the amount of packaging you're using is another vital piece of that, to make it smaller, to make it thinner, while keeping it recyclable.
Yeah. And just to play off that, I mean, specifically tea bags, like, okay, let's think of how many materials that is, right? Yeah. Like the box is made of cardboard for the most part, we would assume.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty easily recycled. The bag itself, some would probably think that that's compostable, because like it's maybe fibrous material, that it's maybe a papery material, but like oftentimes they're lined with plastic.
Yep.
Or the bag that you open to get your tea bag out is probably maybe like, yeah, plastic lined or aluminum lined, but it's probably a mixed material.
Right. Which you can't recycle.
Is not recyclable. Exactly. Then the tea bag itself has that little string, has that tag, has a staple.
Right.
Again, where that's like many different types of materials.
Right.
And I think that was the most interesting thing in this book, was really opened my eyes to thinking about the number of different materials things are using with their packaging.
Right. That was really interesting. Yeah.
Because I never really thought about it. I mean, it really takes like conscious effort to be like, what is like this made out of, like what's inside here? I mean, this is I'm sure this can't be recycled. This is just, I don't even know where this came from. I never buy a Sharpie. I don't know where this came from, but um, um, yeah, it's like a new way of thinking though, really is kind of,
Right. We're like,
but that's important to think that way when you are a brand owner and when you're
right,
designing the packaging for your products.
right.
Um,
It's like I have this stuff is some material. This is
rubber,
probably a recyclable, like this piece.
maybe, but it's quite small, so it
It's
might
very small.
just fall
Yeah,
through the sorting. Yeah.
true. But then there's like a metal spring inside
Mhm.
here. And like this isn't, I can't, you never able to use a whole rubber eraser, and this is trash.
Yeah.
Can't be composted. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. And ultimately, it's up to brands when they are designing their packaging to think about it from this frame of mind.
yeah,
Because you, as the brand owner, are the one that has the ability to make changes.
yep,
Consumers have to deal with what you're giving them.
yeah.
And they can, consumers do the best that they can, but it's
Can sort through their options, but yeah, it's
right. We're working within the recycling system itself, which,
mm,
there are a few things that are more highly recyclable than anything else, which would be like paper, aluminum, and glass.
yep. Plastic is also pretty fucking recyclable if you choose the right type of plastic and you
Mhm.
keep it clear or white. Like
That. Let's highlight that.
I
Didn't know
yeah,
that.
I was super into that. I'm like, is plastic really, I mean, plastic is a really big problem, but could it be less of a problem? Like how to focus on that. Like there are some things as even as a sustainable brand owner that are you're gonna have to package in plastic, or you're gonna have to like choose like a really good example with a brand we worked with was like pop top was like pop tops, or they had glass bottles, but their tops
Oh,
were
yeah. Like
plastic.
pumps or, yeah.
Pumps, or if you have a shower product, like putting those in plastic is a lot safer than putting them in glass and or aluminum, which isn't really great to have in a shower.
Hmm.
So because it's slippery. So like, what do you choose in there when it comes to that? And it's like clear plastic that is very easily recyclable is the way to go there, which I didn't know about. I think that is like super important information.
Yeah. 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 I think that understanding what is desirable for the recycling um, center
Yeah.
is like step number one, because that's like, and that the information about the different colored plastic being more or less desirable is something that's not widely known
No.
at
And
all.
yeah, if you want to know more about like desirable stuff, this book is your go-to. Like seriously, if you're into packaging and you're like thinking about just you're thinking about designing packaging for your brand, I think I would recommend this book a lot.
Totally.
I think you
Totally.
absolutely should, as a prerequisite before rebranding or repackaging your products, is listen to this book.
Yeah.
It's like 6 hours of your time. You're going to spend longer than that building your packaging easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a very, very good book for people who are about to make those changes or interested in making those changes to have a more sustainable
Yeah,
uh, packaging. Because yeah, they give some really solid recommendations, but it also kind of opens your eyes up to, you know, to working within the limitations of the current recycling industry, which is just that like they're a business,
right.
they are providing a service of recycling materials, but
Mm-hmm.
they sell that recycled materials
Right.
to to industry, to brand owners, right? So like, you know, these are some of the some of the suggestions that we had mentioned, I think 2 podcasts ago. um we still stand behind, because it's still like, you as a brand owner should be looking to source materials that have been recycled.
Yep.
So it's like post-consumer waste,
Yep.
because that closes the loop, because you're then demanding recycled materials so that they have an
Mm-hmm.
incentive to recycle those
Yep.
materials. You're, and like, yeah, if no one was interested in buying post-consumer waste, a hell of a lot more stuff would end up in the landfill.
Right. Also, when you, yeah, one of the big problems there is, can just because something is recycled doesn't make it recyclable.
Yes.
So, so looking into that, looking into that as in terms of your infrastructure, like in terms of the infrastructure that you're working with your MRF, like your recycling facility,
Mhm.
make sure that when you are getting recycled material for your packaging, that is, you can also recycle it again, or it can be recycled again, or they were
Yeah.
very clear about the end stages of that, of the what you're buying.
Yeah, that's what gets tricky about plastic recycling and
So
using recycled
confusing.
plastic,
Yeah. I don't
because
know. There doesn't seem to be a cut and dry rule about that,
uh
and that's problematic.
yeah, and I think, I mean, that's why a lot of the plastic that we try to recycle ends up not being able to get recycled, because it's like, it's colored, right? It's different colors, it's different thicknesses. When it's melted down and all put together, it can get brittle.
Yep.
And it's also probably a non-desirable color, because brands often want to have like their color
Right. It's
plastic.
gray. I have
Mhm.
I have like a bird feeder. I should bring it in here for one of these. It's really, really cool. It's a bird feeder that you put little suet balls into, and it's made out of complete like recycled plastic.
Mm.
And it's gray.
Hmm.
Like it's just, and it's like, it is kind of, it feels a little weird.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's one of the only things I found that's like 100%, not because it was a gift, it's 100% recycled plastic, and it's like built to last for a really long time because it's a bird feeder. And I think it's really beautiful, but I can totally imagine that packaging for a product, it wouldn't be very pretty in. So
Right.
this is one of those recycled materials that is undesirable and otherwise would definitely go to a landfill,
Hmm.
you know?
Right. And so I mean, there isn't a perfect solution for how to make recycled plastic recyclable. Like, it doesn't, the quality of the plastic does not stay throughout the
Right.
recycling process like it would for aluminum or glass. Like
Yeah.
those are a lot better at kind of
But even then,
retaining their
like
strength,
even,
at least.
yeah,
Yeah.
but even glass, like you can't mix colors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the same. The infrastructure is just a lot farther along in terms of like knowing what to recycle and what not to recycle,
Mm-hmm.
or how they spread it out, or I don't actually know.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to plastic though, where it's like um colored glass. You can't take out pigment
Right.
from glass once it's been
Right.
made a certain color, it is that. And so there really isn't, yeah, it definitely becomes a bit more challenging once
Hmm.
it's been recycled, to sell that back. But um
There's an infrastructure for it, so it's simpler, like
yeah.
they said, oh yeah, we have like all my beer is dark brown, or there's green glass, and you just
Hmm.
recycle and together, and then it's recycled back into green glass.
Yeah.
But it's not the same with plastic, because not only do you have the different colors, you have different types of plastic and different like polymer blends or resin blends or whatever, and that shit just doesn't stay as nice or hold
Mhm.
together as well. So yeah, I
Yeah.
thought that to be as a consumer looking out for that is interesting, but as a like a brand owner, you should be actively choosing packaging that can be recycled again.
Totally. Yeah, totally. Which means that you might have to compromise on making something that's ultra branded or like your brand colors. Um,
Sort of, because you could also cover like one, I think, I wish I had an example of a brand that does this, but I don't, is if you have a product that you do want to put into a plastic bottle, is getting a thin paper coating that can go over top of the whole thing. This is
mhm,
especially effective if like you have an herbal product that should be kept in the dark.
mhm.
um, you know, covering the bottle with a perforated label that can be, I mean, that's going to cost a little extra, but you're also going to save on like the printed plastic.
Mhm.
Just kind of being, yeah, kind of being like thinking about, okay, my consumer is somebody that cares a lot about the sustainability of this product. So giving them a label they can remove very easily with a package that they can like rinse out and recycle, is part of my brand values. That's something, you know, we're not asking for perfection, but you can work towards, you know.
Yeah. It's an investment, but it is something that you really, once you're investing in that, like that becomes something that is a differentiator from you from
Right.
any of your competitors.
Yep,
So
yep.
like it's
Use it in your marketing. Don't forget to
absolutely.
use all this information in your marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, but it's certainly
Speaking
not.
of responsibility,
Mhm.
something that I find really interesting and that you said last week, the true cost of packaging.
Yeah.
And something I found really interesting in this book was they talked about EPR laws. I didn't write down what that stood for, but it was something like environmental protection or packaging regulations or something like that.
Probably. Okay.
Um, that they're really effective. It's like um, the cost is related to packaging and it moves towards the true cost of packaging.
Mm.
And what caught my mind was that you said that last week and we like went back and forth about it a little bit, and then I immediately heard it in this book and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, interesting. And it's
Hmm.
essentially a law, like a government regulation that says that it doesn't necessarily punish brands for choosing non-recyclable, but it like gives rewards for choosing recyclable material or
Hmm.
choosing environmentally friendlier materials. And it kind of has been shown, I think in Germany in particular, they talked about to be really effective in migrating whole brands off of like packaging that isn't super great, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting. So
And federal legislation for that.
it's at the yeah, so it's at the kind of at the brand production of the thing level,
Yeah.
right? That's where the
Right.
that yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
man, I think that there should absolutely be more regulations on what types of plastic we can accept, like that should exist. Like I think it gets fuzzy because of, you know, we live in a global economy. There is
Yeah.
trade and things that we cannot regulate because they're outside of our country.
And
um
sometimes, like, when we make those types of regulations, it makes me a little afraid of, like, are we putting a cap on innovation? Because you have to, like, innovation often comes with, like, you fuck up a bunch of stuff. before you find like the real solution. Like bioplastics is a really good example. But like, yeah, so there's a level of regulating what can and can't.
But like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if regulation would necessarily negatively affect innovation, though.
It feels to me like well, like censorship negatively affects like artistic expression, for instance. Like there are humans in the world that spend their whole lives building this type of technology, and then if they're like, I can't use this polymer anymore because
Mm.
X thing happened, because
Hmm.
this law was passed, and so now this type of packaging can't be in like the UK, or which is a really tactile example right now.
Yeah.
um, then everything has to be rethought for a brand. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of
Right.
regulation. Because yeah, what if somebody had developed a type of polymer that could be broken down by, I don't know, light or natural materials that then left over like very recyclable packaging, but they couldn't use it because it was regulated.
Hmm.
That's why EPR laws are effective, because they don't remove things from, they don't like make laws like that, but
Hmm.
they kind of make it so that recyclable material and recycled material is just more like financially viable.
Interesting.
Like rather than removing, kind of like adding. Yeah. Maybe giving
Hmm.
subsidies to recycled materials production or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That, I mean, that that was definitely something that was also mentioned, I think, in regards to the recycling industry in general, like how negative consequences for not recycling has never really worked.
Yeah.
How only it's only ever been positive reinforcement
Yeah.
or
Oh, that's a
um,
really good point.
positive incentives were the only thing that ever actually contributed to like, which is, I guess, just human nature. We don't like being told no to things, but if we see that we could, save down, like, get some money back or something for making this choice,
Yeah.
be it in the form of like a, actual recycling rebate as a consumer or
Yeah.
um, something through
Yeah. Yeah. Negative
some sort of a
punishment
tax
isn't the
incentive.
most effective like psychology for us.
No, sure isn't. Sure
Just not.
isn't. but but they touched on that in this book, definitely, where they were like, they mentioned that brands should be working to set an example and should be inspiring and to inspire your consumers to appropriately dispose of their packaging and their materials, which is something that we had mentioned as like our suggestion a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, which is so
Yeah.
rad that that was like solidified that like, yeah, it should be something that you should accurate, like actively communicate with your audience, like how to recycle the materials, right? Like you were saying, maybe a label should be really easy to remove so that that separate material can be, that's awesome. Um, or there was a cool example where it was like this toy came in a box, and on the inside of the box they gave instructions for how to like fold it so that the box itself kind of became part of the toy. It was something
Super
like
cool.
it was like a boat with like a little, it must have been like an action figure or something, I don't really
That's
know,
totally
but
cool.
it was so much fun. I'm like, that's so rad. And of course, then it was like, of saying how to recycle it and all of that. But first, it kind of like allowed for you to utilize the packaging in part of like the experience of
Yeah.
the thing, which is really cool. Um,
I'm down for that. I like that.
get more than one use out of out of the thing. So it's not
Word
just
box,
for,
yeah.
yeah. Um, right. That like just making it easier on your consumer. It's ultimately up to the brand and the brand owners, and you have to lead by example and just continuously communicate about it. Like
Yeah.
a broken record might seem like it, but
You know, when what we found is that when a brand gets to a point where they feel like they're a broken record, like it's frustrating for a business owner, but it's also really exciting for us
yeah,
because we're like, you hit your stride, you found your values,
you're in
you've
the
like,
fucking niche, man. You're in
yeah,
it.
you did the niche, you're like there.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, that's right. Your job is to make content now around the stuff you care about. And
Yep.
business owners are like, but I'm always saying the same thing. You know, I want to, yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
But that's what we work towards with building brands is like sharing the same message and sharing the same values all forever. That's what you do. You know, you can share
That's
everything.
how yeah, that's how you educate people, right? Can you imagine how tiring it is for a first grade teacher to have to explain math every year? Like, like it's the same, you know, you're working, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, yes,
you
I do.
have to continuously, you can't think that you just say something once and it's one and done. Your audience is ever growing. It is always rotating in and out. They're also seeing millions of other pieces of content. And
Yep.
for you to be that brand that continues to show up with a solid message, a, that's focused on sustainability and focused on your products and how they like interact with this circular economy, like you're doing it.
You're doing it. That's what you want to get to. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really funny. It's probably, I mean, I can't even imagine being a teacher, but like,
We
it's
should
the
talk to a
same
teacher.
feeling, right? When you have to continuously educate people, you kind of have to say the
Yeah,
same
but I
thing
think even
a
with
bunch of
teaching,
times, different
it's still
ways.
you hit a stride where it's like, and all of a sudden things click,
Yeah.
and your audience will start to come to you because of the thing that you're doing, or they've searched you out because of the way that you're building sustainably.
Hmm.
And then like you can back off from like constantly explaining it into like just reminding people that it's part of your mission rather than being like, ah, you know, it just becomes part of your habit and part like that feels really good. And I think it's probably the same for a teacher. I'm just like at some point their first grade class like mostly gets math.
They'll get it. They'll
Yeah.
get it, and then they're ready for the next thing, you know?
And it starts all the way over again.
Mhm. But it's, yeah, it's honest, it's the exact same thing when you're a brand owner and you're working towards kind of doing something innovative that does require um a level of education. Right, like not everyone comes to the table with the same amount of information, and so it's positioning your brand as someone who supports and educates and walks through this process of learning alongside your audience, is a really, really unique position to be in, and it's a really incredible position to be in because that person will create such an intense connection with you as the brand to show that much transparency, openness, honesty, humanity.
Yeah.
um
It's how
yeah.
you build loyalty into your brand.
Yeah.
Loyalty is really important. Ooh, what do you have
Loyalty
going
is
on, Courtney? I hear you
really,
digging.
hmm?
Sorry.
I got a
Just
notification.
I know. That's
I
I'm like, what do you got going on? What do you do?
should I should probably close my calendar when we do these podcasts. But hey man, we're operating a marketing agency, so
We have a lot.
things. Yeah.
A lot.
Um,
Yeah. And we're launching a new brand. Kind of.
New side business. Yeah.
Oh, so
Offshoot
cool.
of our
I'm
direct.
thinking of it as like an arm of our dandelion.
Yeah.
Like it kind of is quickly taking on its own thing, which is wonderful.
Hmm. Yeah. So if you are a sustainable brand owner,
Hit us up.
you should hit us up. Yes. Send us a message, connect with us on Instagram, dandelion underscore branding. Um, we're working on a really dope directory
Yeah.
that we think will be a really cool resource, not only for consumers, but also for brand owners.
Yeah. To be able to connect with each other. I'm so
Yeah.
excited for that community. I think it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
And
gonna be awesome, and it's gonna make brands a lot of money.
totally. Yeah. Something I actually, within the notes I wrote from this book, I wrote down it's all about community, peers, and sharing.
Sure is.
Because there was a portion of this book where it was talking about kind of, I think it was in reference to like the milkman, and back in the day there used to be more, um it was just kind of ingrained in our society to have these kind of reusable things. We didn't really think of them as reusable. That was just the
Right.
way that it was.
Right. It was just
um
filled. Like you'd have your thing out, and the milkman would come, and he would get your old,
yeah.
the old cartons or the glass bottles, and then he'd give
Hmm.
you new ones that he had washed and refilled. Like,
Totally. And like those are the types of solutions that are going to have a resurgence. I think like
yeah,
within our lifetime. They already are.
yeah. I was like, can we talk about loop?
Right. So
That's such a good start to close. Yeah, just to kind of close out this book. I'm like super pro recommending it, and you?
yeah, I think it was I mean, obviously you'd have to be somebody who has some stake in the game, is interested in trying to learn
Yeah,
more about packaging in general. So it's probably something that maybe has to do with your career or your ideal, career. But yes, absolutely. If you're a brand owner, if you are a packaging designer, if you are really kind of anywhere in the production line of
yep,
working with manufacturing some sort of product, it would be a really valuable read.
yeah. Or you're just like a book nerd, or you like
Right
to learn
on.
a lot of stuff, or you're just into
Sure.
like sustainability. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, really, when we're thinking of packaging and packaging waste, ultimately we have to think back on like our consumption habits, and what are we purchasing. Do we need to purchase the way that we had been for many years prior? And the answer is no, that there are innovative solutions out there, um, that um, are kind of like a nod to the old days a little bit,
yeah,
like the milkman style, um, which is what we wanted to kind of mention. So we went up TerraCycle, highly recommend checking out, just kind of
yeah.
being aware of who they are. They're rad,
Super awesome.
gonna change the world.
Yeah,
It's TerraCycle, TerraCycle.com.
yeah.
They're awesome. We literally just went to their website prior to recording this and saw that they launched a zero waste milkman style
Yeah.
e-com household product business
Yes.
called Loop.
Loop. Yeah. Their whole focus is kind of like anything can be recycled if you put enough money and attention behind it. And Loop, I think, like TerraCycle is, and I think Loop does such a good job of bringing that forward and making it really clear. Like some of the people are like Clorox and Crest that are on this list, and you're like, can my Colgate is who I talked to on Twitter. I was giving Colgate shit for greenwashing, and they're like, actually, we work with TerraCycle, and I'm like, but that's awesome. Good job. So yeah, it's like, can I recycle this stuff? And it's like TerraCycle can, and not only can they recycle it, they'll help these brands make new packaging that you can have delivered and then send back to them to be cleaned.
Right. Yeah. So that's what Loop is. It is like you purchase the goods and you also have a deposit on that packaging. When you are done with whatever it is that's inside that packaging, you return it. You, at that point, probably get that rebate on whatever that packaging is, unless you are kind of refilling it and reordering that same thing. So, but yeah, it's delivered to your door. It's like kind of mind-blowing how cool this is. A lot of stuff is in aluminum, or honestly probably almost all of it's aluminum, some things in glass. But it's a zero waste solution for getting home kind of kitchen like bulk food, bulk herbs, oils, vinegars. It's honestly incredible. I'm really like, I'm ready to order this right now. Like this is and this sort of stuff is the future. I mean, TerraCycle is massive, so they have the infrastructure for being able to take back the packaging and clean it and sanitize it in a way that it is reusable. I know that is a really challenging thing for brands. It could, it's an awesome concept, but as an individual brand, that is incredibly hard to do.
Right.
But by partnering with TerraCycle, they'll help you do it, right? Like they help you to develop that type of packaging, and they have the infrastructure for actually cleaning and sanitizing it. Like that's
huge. That's
I don't know of an alternative. I don't know of a system that is as
not
connected
like that
as this. Yeah, I think that this is gonna, I'm just gonna call it like, can we invest in loopstore.com? Because like get it on the ground level, like get it right now, because this is gonna blow up. And it's so cool to just see that like there are other options that are not hugely cost prohibitive.
Right. Yeah, you just have to look for them.
Yeah, loopstore.com. Non-spawn, but spawn us, please.
We're on board. Hello.
Wow.
Yeah. We found this website and just we independently scrolled in silence with being like
jaw dropped, literally. Like yeah, I mean this is the future. It has to be. We cannot rely on plastic any longer. It's just, hi Maven, making an appearance once again. Chief Marketing Officer. Yes. Yeah, there are solutions out there, and
there's lots of solutions. We just have to like collectively make the investment into them.
Yeah. And I mean, it means getting in touch with your local recycling facilities, seeing what materials are easiest for them to recycle, investing in choosing those for your packaging, working towards single materials, mono materials is the word they were
Yeah.
using. So that means like, none of that plastic lined paper or anything like that. Like just,
Stop doing that.
it's not necessary. Yeah.
Like, I can't even, I get so, now that we've like gone through this and like started to learn about it, I get so frustrated when like I go out of my way, again with the tea, I go out of my way to buy loose leaf tea to use in these.
Mhm.
It's not convenient. Like, and that, which is fine. But I get the loose leaf tea and they come in these nice bags and they're paper bags and I get them open and they're lined in plastic. And
Yep.
you don't know that until you open the bag and it's like, wait, that was unnecessary, friend.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, we gotta let go of our reliance on plastic. Um,
we
that
don't need
yeah,
it. We don't need it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that it's gonna be a different situation in the coming future than it has been over the past 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't like this has been the way forever, like our reliance on plastic started in like 70s, 80s, where
I
like
think maybe like the 50s, they were like, it was a
it
thing.
started, yeah,
It
for sure.
started, it was like it was like a wartime, like it was used to create war stuff.
Absolutely. Yes. Um, but
And then
also with like the surge of availability of credit,
he,
which happened in the 70s,
yeah,
80s, companies had no incentive to create something that you kept for a long time.
right,
Their only incentive was disposable, make you buy it over and over again.
right. Planned obsolescence. And we
Land
go back to the
obsolescence.
last book we read.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Yes.
actually they talked about that in this book, but last month when we read the book, Reduce, Reuse, Reimagine, Beth Porter talked uh, about planned obsolescence in detail, and it comes right back to it. This like linear economy and planned obsolescence, and
Yep.
like not reusing anything ever, and it's bullshit. We should stop doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not like we're reinventing the wheel. This was done. We are a bigger society than we were back then, um but we can absolutely take inspiration from systems of the past
Totally.
to make a more sustainable future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Loopshop.com.
Loop store.
Oh, loopstore.com.
Loop shop is cute, but loopstore.com is is a solution that TerraCycle has created for a waste-free shopping experience.
Yeah.
Um, mainly for whole like groceries and personal care stuff right now though. Yeah. So
Yeah.
excited to see what else they launch though. So
I know it's gonna be
um
dope.
yeah, man, it's so that was it was a really cool book. Next week we are actually having a guest.
Change
Um
maker chats.
yes, we're going to be joined by Greg Barber, who works for Eco-Friendly Printer. He's been dedicated to sustainable paper manufacturing and dyes and print materials for like 30 years, if not more.
Super
And
stoked to talk to him.
yeah, so I think that'll be really interesting insight because often we hear that like, cardboard and paper packaging is one of the top sustainable solutions. And I want to know more about that.
Yep.
Is
I
it?
don't want I'm learning really quickly with environmental that a lot of the assumptions that I have are bullshit assumptions. Like
Yeah.
that like I think wish cycling is a really good term to use. It's like, well, this is basically plastic. That doesn't work, okay? But this is
Mm-hmm.
basically paper. I want to ask him about print paper, like magazines,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't.
like super
If it's
glossy papers.
super
Yeah.
glossy stuff, like what do we do with that? Is that actually recyclable?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like ads and stuff that you still get in the newspaper, like newspaper, sure. But that glossy stuff, is that coated with plastic? I think some of it is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm very curious about that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And he's just a really, I think, just going to be a great resource for, again, for brand owners if you want to source um, recycled paper for your own business, if you're using any print materials um, and eco-friendly dyes and things like that. Like, I don't know what are the negative consequences of dyes in general for paper and stuff like that. Like,
Right.
does I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
Well,
Does the
yeah.
same apply for like the fashion industry dyes that we talked about 2 months ago?
Yeah. So
Um,
stay tuned for
very
that
curious about
next
that.
week.
Yeah. Yay. If you
Yeah.
want to get notified of that coming, please subscribe because
Yes,
you'll get a boop about it.
that is true. Yeah. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel because we would really appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Thanks for joining us on this journey and the larger journey of environmental podcast.
And we'll see you next time.
Yep. All right. Bye, everybody.